All right, we are live. I am joined this evening by, kind of like international man of mystery, uh, loved by all, known by few. I was saying to you just before we started that I kind of didn't even want to say your name, but your name's going to be in the title of this, so there's not really any point in hiding it. I'm here with William Branch. How are you?
Just fine, thank you. It's a beautiful night here where I live. I hope it's beautiful in Wisconsin where you are.
It's very nice. Jane and the dog Zoe and I went for a run, and it's hot, so it's a miserable kind of beauty, but beauty
Well, it is,
nonetheless.
yes, it is relatively hot here. Maybe not as humid as where you're at because I'm not near a Great Lake. I'm near a desert. But uh, I enjoyed uh, traveling across the United States just last week, and I am happy to be back home in time for this technical interview.
Um, okay, Branch, is there anything that you want to say about yourself? I don't really do introductions. Is there anything that you feel like it's important that someone would know about you before we kind of get into the weeds?
I do. I think a little biographical bit of explanation is helpful to frame things so you have some idea of who you're listening to. In my case, I am a retiree. I am a edge lord of the TLC because I'm not really a member, but I inhabit it a lot, and I enjoy uh, anthropology, which is to say, I enjoy religion and languages and history in that order. And that's the basis with which I communicate virtually not alone with the members of the TLC for the last 3+ years. And that's who I am.
I love that edge lord is part of your obligatory information. Okay, well, I'm gonna align the planets, and I believe that you said you had something you wanted to start with. Is that is that true?
I can start with any number of things since you are leaning toward technology. We could talk about the fraud that is AI, for instance.
Are there other things we could talk about?
Well, there's many things, but not all of them are technical. Um, the other technical thing we could talk about is the future of engaging in propaganda via the internet, of which AI is a peripheral part.
Yeah, I like the second one more.
Uh
And
huh.
also, this is the quest for the holy Techne. So Techne
Yes.
is broad.
Yes. The same way I treat semiotics versus
Yep.
semantics. Semiotics includes visual and other such things, whereas semantics is verbal only. So in the semiotics, I would treat techne at the same level. Yes. So the goal of authority is to craft a narrative in order to achieve a particular result. The result usually being the manufacturing of consent, which is a good thing
Why is that good?
because there needs to be some order in society. Understandably, people feel very paranoid. Some of us feel paranoid about being manipulated. And certainly there's a tremendous amount of manipulation that goes on that people like Grim Grizz notes. And we have much more technical capability today than we ever had 50 years ago. And I actually remember what 50 years ago looked like. You had the ability to write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper, and they might even publish it.
You
And
had
that
a
would,
local newspaper.
if you had a local newspaper, which we did in my case. I mean, at the time I lived in Denver, and I managed to do this one time in about 1990. Time magazine had a technical error in one of their reports that named my town incorrectly. And I sent a letter to the editor saying, oh, by the way, the town is called Arvada, Arvada, Arvada. And that was my initial contact with the great continuum of information in the world. Not much compared to what I can do now.
And what can you do now?
I can jump on any website and comment on it. And you know how many websites there are? How many how websites is obsolete already. YouTube pages, really, YouTube channels. There are millions of them. And basically I'm faced with an overwhelmingly dense and rich target to comment on. I mean this in a positive way, not necessarily meaning to attack people. I don't necessarily mean to attack, particularly in TLC. I'm there to contribute some calm and support and friendship. Next.
How many other corners of the internet do you participate in?
TLC is my strongest participation. Consistently, I do it every single day almost because it's that attractive. And we can thank Paul Vanderklay for that. But there are other flotillas that I enjoy. In my case, again, we're talking technology here. My favorite part of all of this is chat because I am open and um, spontaneous and sincere. And chat is the ideal technology, Techne, for me to communicate with because it basically allows me to zone in to what's happening in a spontaneous way, except that it is most fun when there's so much chat going on that you can't even keep up. That's the best kind of chat of all because because that's an external stream of consciousness. I love external stream of consciousness. It's a lot of fun. And since it's fun, I try to be nice about it. I try to be friendly, though I can be biting, as some people note, and also I can be somewhat obtuse because in my stream of consciousness, in my zone, I'm spontaneously integrating multiple sources at the same time, which the reader can't see. I'm an I'm an iceberg, and you can only see the top 10% of what's going on in my head when I'm chatting. So you have to engage me in order to find out where the rest of the iceberg is. Now that's the funnest part. The second funnest part is commenting after the fact. I do enjoy commenting after the fact. It allows me an opportunity to take a little time to think about it, and it is of course not spontaneous, and so I'm able to uh, uh, generally comment in such a way that sometimes in a trivial way and sometimes in a more profound way. But I don't mind the fact that in many cases my comments get blocked because what? It's all about moi. It's not about you. It's all about me satisfying my psychological needs, not yours. Well, actually not. If you can manage to catch something that hasn't been blocked, and if you find it valuable for you, I'm happy for that too. And so that's the second most important part. The third most important part is what other blatherskite Luke Thompson is making, or the Friday Estuary, Hollywood Squares, etc. I'm not saying that they're not good. They're all good. They're simply not something that I can easily interact with, and so they fulfill the needs of other people, and I'm happy that their needs are fulfilled. But oftentimes, in particular for the Friday morning estuary with PBK, I'm frequently at breakfast. I can't have the audio on because I don't have iPod. I don't have hearing aids, so I
Yeah.
have the volume turned all the way down. So I'm in that case, I'm strictly interacting with the chat. I'm not interacting with anything else that's going on at the Friday estuary. So we all have different reasons for showing up in different parts of the in different parts of the TLC, in different flotillas, um, and frankly, for me, PBK's Sunday sermons are the least interesting because I'm married to a pastor, and I've heard this all before. So that gives you a sense. That gives you a sense of the Techne and what it means to me psychologically in terms of the virtually not alone.
Yeah.
Now, as far
Why do
as
you think? Go ahead.
yes, well, I wanted to mention just briefly. Right now, I pay a lot of attention to Chris Howard in the morning. I catch you when I can because you're very early, and I catch PVK's Friday Friday Estuary when I can, and uh, and then of course I catch Luke Thompson whenever he's out, because they give me good good chat stream. Next,
You like the You like the living streams, the live streams.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It is wonderful experience for me, and it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. I understand that I don't always seem to make sense to other people, particularly since a given chat comment might be related to five other things simultaneously, which of course obviously the other person can't see that unless they happen to be participating in a dialogos. If they're in a dialogos with me in a stream and we've had five dialogues interactions, we have a little universe within a little multiverse within the big universe of chat temporarily where we're discussing something, and our discussion might be serious or it might be very unserious because I have a sense of humor.
Why do you think it is that we seek out these kind of digital live streams over trying to recreate that sensation in person or in the physical world?
An excellent question. I do not have an opportunity for any estuary at my location, unfortunately. I also don't really have opportunity to go to any conferences. I am very happy that there are estuaries that people go to, and I'm very happy that there are conferences that people go to, even ones that are slightly outside, like Symbolic World. I consider it a very good thing for people to go to Symbolic World as well as our our branded TLC conferences. So those are all wonderful. I just don't have an opportunity for that. So it's a matter of opportunity. If I had an opportunity here, I would take it. But I do have a actual embodiment, an actual live congregation that I attend every week. So I am embodied. I'm not one of those people who is looking to become embodied in a local congregational situation. But that actually came about at about the same time, about 3 years ago. Um, a new congregation opened up near me that enabled me to reconnect with live people. But of course, as many of us autistic types know, the kind of conversations we have in TLC are not the kind of conversations we have at church or synagogue. That serves a different purpose. We have many itches and we need to use many fingers to scratch them.
So you mentioned autistic types. What is autism?
Autism is a spectrum. Technically, it's mostly male and it's called the Sigma male syndrome. Okay. Um, but in the experience of my counseling, because I've been under counseling for 3 years, thank God, uh, I get free counseling. I'm very lucky. So in my free counseling of 1 hour a week, um, my counselor, of course, has told me professionally, because of course I looked up what these symptoms were unprofessionally, but the professional opinion is we have certain traumas in our past such that we are not able to have a normal dialogos with other people. In a manner of speaking, it's like being dyslexic, only it's more general.
Being dyslexic, but it's more general.
But more general than dyslexic. Dyslexic is semantic.
Yeah.
Autism is semiotic.
Okay, but what does that mean? Autism is semiotic.
Okay, in the sense that, uh, in terms of dysfunction, you have multiple levels of function in a normal interaction with normal people that has to do with body language and social status and tone of voice and facial gestures and expected response, which is to say what in linguistics is called chicken shit, which is to say, hello, how are you? What is the weather today? Oh, the weather is very nice today. Okay. We have certain scripts that we go through, and these are always present in every book of language. When you're studying a language, whether it be Irish or Chinese or whatever, there's always a list of common phrases that are used to get over the social hump so that the real conversation can begin. And of course, this varies greatly by culture. Once you've gotten through the initial "I'm not trying to kill you," you get to the "oh, this is medieval China. In medieval China, we have social rank. My social rank is so and so. Your social rank is something else." This is actually true in current Japanese speech. You have different levels of speech depending on who you're talking to. Literally, different languages depending on if you, let's say, if you're a man like yourself, if you were speaking to a child, it's one language. If you speak to your equal, it's a different language. If
Hmm.
you're talking to a woman, it's a third language. And if you're talking to a superior, you better watch out or your head will be cut off. Those are all
You
part. Those are all part of the cultural, the part of the culture that has to do with communication and interaction with other people is part of the semiotic. And of course, when that's broken, it can be broken at many levels. One of my habits is I tend to interrupt people. This is a bad habit. So that's an example of a brokenness. Now, um, diagnostically, one can say, well, this is because my father beat me, or whatever the cause was in my childhood that causes me to get, locked up mentally.
yeah.
So does that make sense?
I think it's going to. When you were
Well,
talking
that's
about
good.
the Japanese language and you were talking about someone speaking to their superior, you mentioned
Yes.
heads being chopped off.
Yes.
And
It
this
used to matter a
morning,
whole lot. Sorry. See, I just interrupted you.
it's okay. This morning, I left a
You
comment on I what? What were you gonna
are
say?
you there? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to fill in the silence for you, so that um, when we are conversing, you have to observe a loose or tight protocol in how you interact with people. Of course, I, a more typical example that I experienced as an American was when I was at work in the military. I was a civilian in a military environment, and I needed to have a certain level of military formality with everybody that I worked with.
yeah,
Now, in a certain sense, I was often dealing at an equal level because I was twice as old as those kids. So I was um, basically granted equality with them. But once you got to the senior officer level, once you got above captain, then the rank thing uh, came back in, even though technically I have no rank at all.
Hmm.
So that's an awkward situation. Much more normal if everybody's in uniform.
It makes things clearer, certainly,
Well,
when uniforms are designated.
now going back to Japan, have you've seen the kind of school uniforms that Japanese students wear?
Possibly.
Okay, particularly the boys. Those are military uniforms. They
Sure.
are they are paramilitary because that is what Japanese culture was, and to a certain extent still is.
Hmm.
They they don't impose a more military look on the girls, on the teen girls. Instead they have the midi blouse, short skirt outfit, which is, you know, from a male standpoint, it is comical, but it is comical in a nice way. We will let the girls pretend that they're in the Navy, but they're not really. Have you ever heard of uh, girls in panzers?
As in like the tank? No.
Yes. Okay. This was a big thing. It's been reworked several times by editing, but it's basically from the 90s. But it's very funny version of it because again, and I don't mean to offend women, but I just lay it out the way it is. In Japanese culture, they have girls representing different high schools, and each high school, each Japanese high school, it represents a different World War II military service, including the Axis and the Allies, and each team apes the behavior of that nation, as well as driving the tank that was typical of that nation, and of course, nobody actually gets hurt. They do destroy a lot of things, and it's very funny. And particularly if you can imagine, oh, these are Japanese girls that are pretending to be English, or they're pretending to be Russian, or they're pretending to be German, or they're pretending to be American. And of
Hmm.
course, it plays up all those stereotypes. But it's funny because it's all girls, and so this is a little bit higher level. It's not the girls in midi blouses and short skirts. It's that is their normal uniform in school. No, they actually wear a quasi military uniform. But like I say, nobody actually gets hurt, and the action of it is somewhat ridiculous because they speed up the action so that it's exciting to watch. Actual tanks move slowly, but these
Yeah.
tanks but these tanks fly like Ferraris, and it's very funny. And I absolutely recommend anybody who doesn't mind a somewhat dated uh, stereotypical treatment of women. But it is very funny. But that's an example again of a an anthropology. Most societies have social classes. Americans barely have any class at all, and any foreigner will tell you that we have no class, and they don't mean it as a compliment.
Yes. Yeah, I experienced that in my travels in Europe, for sure. For
And that's
sure.
okay. To me, I'm not offended by it. I can be pretend offended by it, but as an anthropologist, I recognize people are the way they are. They're not good or bad. They simply are the way they are. And but I can pretend. I can be fake fake angry at how dismissive British toffs are toward Americans. And on the other part of the internet, I will remind them regularly that we beat their ass, or more. More typically, okay, this is back in the lore, in the branch lore, is I first played with toy soldiers when I was 4, and the first toy soldiers I played with was Yankees versus Redcoats.
Yeah, that would make sense. I've never seen those toy soldiers. I don't think. I imagine those were all
They
sold.
haven't been very popular for about 70 years now. But yeah, so that was my first toy soldiers. Uh, just again to give an example of how I can treat other cultures with a bit of dismissive behavior on my part. But it's all in fun. I don't hate anybody. I don't consider that I have any enemies. But I do consider it fair play to verbally toy with other people. And you can call that trolling, but actually it's more like an ogre. I have layers like an onion.
Do you think that the internet is increasing autism? Because I've been thinking about the way that the internet decapitates us, and it
Yes.
kind of takes a human being and puts a human being into the human's head. And you can, I mean, I've done this. It's been a while. Praise Jesus. But like, you can spend hours on the internet in your head, and you look at the clock and you go, "Oh, where did this time go?"
Oh yeah,
And that's strange.
when you are younger, you have the power of concentration. When I was in high school, I could concentrate on homework in the living room while my folks watched football, and I could go for an hour and I didn't even hear the television. That's that's a degree of concentration. And that by itself, I don't think there's anything bad about that. Be glad that you have that power of concentration. Now, did you use your time wisely? That's another animal. But um, but I do think that we have to be careful. Again, anthropology. We have to be careful jumping to conclusions, particularly with new technology. I don't think that the internet increases autism. That's a cause effect. As it reveals it, we were already autistic to begin with. I had no means of expressing my autism before 1990 because it would take a Herculean effort to put a single paragraph in a magazine and a letter to the editor. That to say a national magazine took a Herculean effort, and you weren't very likely to ever be published. Being being published was a rare thing before 1990.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I think that, and again, you can say, am I doing the right thing by being free flowing and stream of consciousness? Okay, in a certain sense, of course, if you don't manage it, you can say things that are unfortunate. And I don't mean that in terms of Ofcom in Britain, where they're very strict, but in terms of general politeness. But as a 70-year-old man who has hopefully got his shit together, I'm able to be free flowing mostly in chat, for instance, in a way that is not going to be directly offensive. Of course, occasionally I will screw up. In fact, some people have noticed that PVK gets a little bit loose with his language when he's not on his own channel.
I have noticed.
And that's perhaps to be expected. of course, he's only a few years younger than me, a mere child, but he he has pretty good self control, and and then of course we know genuine trolls who have some sort of mental disability that we encounter online uh, in various places. I have encountered one time a genuine, actual Nazi online. I knew he was a Nazi. I could tell. I stopped the conversation. I didn't want to have a relationship with that person at all. Right. I occasionally run into genuine trolls. Okay, troll can be used as a way of I don't want to hear what you're saying, but a genuine troll that basically they have what we say in psychology an idea fix. They have a thing that they latch onto and they can't let go of it. And in that sense, that's a dysfunction of their conversational ability because normally with a conversation, we can initiate a conversation. We can have a body of a conversation that isn't too terribly long, and then we can let it go. We can have a denouement of the conversation, right? That's
Yeah.
quote normal behavior. Okay. Some of us have difficulty with that. Okay. So, but on the other hand, and I won't name names, I think some people are improved by their interaction on the internet,
Yeah.
particularly in chat, because they're virtually not alone. Which is still, I think that's the greatest thing that TLC's ever come up with. Now, that that is that isn't to say that the only reason why you and I are having this conversation is because we're lonely. Obviously, in some respects, we're not. We're both married. I have an adult child. We're both engaged in church. You have work that you're engaged with. Okay, we're you and I are not alone.
No.
But there was a time 3 years ago, in the depth of depression and the depth of not having a physical church to go to, and in the depth of COVID lockdown, that I was very alone.
Yeah, my COVID experience was quite different, I think, from most people's because I lived within walking distance of some of my best friends,
Uh huh.
and because everything locked down, we just spent more time together. We ate dinner together.
Oh
I
no!
mean, like
You
super
spread the
super regularly.
disease,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah. I'm
maniac.
I'm I'm full maniac in every way. And it's like I didn't like COVID was in some sense it was kind of a beautiful time because I got to have time with people that I loved that I don't normally get that much time with. It was almost like
Unfortunately,
an abundance of time.
unfortunately, I didn't get that time with family because of my particular circumstance.
Yeah.
But I recognize that could have been a good thing for you because ideally, as PVK notes, we are meant to be face to face and engage socially, and ideally, that's the way we need to be living our lives because this internet stuff, this YouTube stuff, is a kind of crutch. But on the other hand, it does fulfill certain things that cannot occur in these other circumstances. So I can have this conversation with you. I would never have this conversation with anybody else on earth. Literally no one. I might have other profound conversations like with Luke or Chris Howard, but
Or
you
Mark
know,
Parker.
or Mark Parker. Yes, Mark Parker was somebody who I deliberately reached out to 2 years ago because he needed somebody. and I made the effort to actually said, aha, this is a person who needs my help. And we've all moved on, right? And that's okay. But I have a lasting friendship with him that is forever. Even though we don't have to see eye to eye on very many things. We just had a few places of overlap, and we had a commitment to listen to each other. That's the thing. It's see again, it's more a matter of listening than talking. And having a skill at listening to somebody, that's a gift that we can give to other people that people have a genuine need for. Of course,
Why?
you don't want to be a person who snores. You wouldn't want people to be talking to you and they don't realize that you went to sleep. But because our sense of overlap, now this gets back into metaphysics, in our sense of overlap with another person, we need to express ourselves in order to get things off our chest. That's a need. On the other hand, being heard is a different need, and and oftentimes people have a deep need to be heard because they have never been heard, or because they were unable to express themselves. So there's two things. There's two things. One, you weren't able to express yourself because of some disability, or your circumstances were such that nobody would listen to you. This is why we pay $100 an hour to a counselor, is to have somebody listen to us who has some professional ability.
How does that change a person? The one who's being listened to. How does just the act of listening change someone?
Okay, we're going to have to go over this in detail because the problem with bidirectional stuff is unclear as to which end of the end of the tin can phone we're talking from. So, um, are you saying what is the effect on you of listening to me speak, or what is the effect of me speaking but knowing that you are listening?
Me speaking, but knowing that that someone is actively listening.
Active, well, and that's the crucial thing. You have to be actively listening. um, I think that uh, it goes back to a episode in Star Trek Classic from 1968 where they had an alien who was disembodied, and he had no sense of boundary. This is a crucial idea that really applies to Luke Thompson. You have a being who has no sense of boundary, and they feel in communion. This also applies to um, uh, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, with Odo being the fluid being who could assume a temporary solid form, but his normal environment was to be in a pool with other beings that don't have boundaries, right? So these are two alien examples, old and new. And so that there's a saying that in the case of Star Trek Classic, the being said he was able to temporarily transfer himself into the body of his companion, which happened to be a human woman who who had the necessary clairvoyance, was able to basically absorb his personality, and he was dismayed at how finite a finite being is, how isolated you are when you're in a body. And so that was how I visualize it based on a TV show from 60 years ago. that we have a sense of built-in loneliness that occurs with our embodiment, with our incarnation as a individual. It's quite a shock sequentially. If you look at things sequentially, it's quite a shock to go from being intimate inside your mother and all of a sudden you're outside in the air
Hmm.
and you are separated from your mother and now you are two separate beings instead of one being integrated. So that's that is my theory of all psychology. Really is all psychological phenomena starts with the separation from the mother and the fact that the nurse or doctor slaps you on the ass.
I mean, you could even read that into the beginning of Genesis, where humans were
Yes,
united with
yes,
God, and then separated, and you could toss in
yes.
Heidegger's thrownness, and what do you
Uh
do
huh.
now that you're thrown into the world?
Yes. Obviously, I'm not the only thinker who's thought of this.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, in 2,500 years of philosophy, almost all ideas have been thought before. The difficulty is they occur in different words or in different circumstances, and sometimes they are difficult to see. But but as a being who has a finite life of 80 plus years or whatever, um, I'm not able to uh, express myself in an always growing fashion. I start with little, I get bigger, and then I cease.
Do you think the internet gives us a taste of that union?
Yes, specifically for me. Okay, now this is using contemporary lingo in chat, in a dynamic chat where there's too many people talking. That's like being in a multiverse. That's like the movie every what everywhere everyone at once. What was the name of that movie last year?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Everywhere, everything, everywhere, all at once.
So
EEATO.
yes, something like that. That is what chat is to me, and I find that environment stimulating to a point. Of course, we don't all want to be continuously in a particular situation that is very dynamic. I think, in particular, and we know who she is, there is or are particular people in TLC who have great difficulty with uh, the free flow of ideas. And that is something I have sympathy for. I consider that not so much a handicap as a characteristic, but one could treat it as a handicap.
One of the comments you often leave has something, it goes something like, I am Illuminati. And I'm
Yes,
curious if there's anything about the Techne of Illuminati that we should know about or be thinking about or can learn from.
that's exactly where I was hoping we would head. That's exactly what I planned on. But I don't have the ability to manipulate somebody into a particular position. Plus, I would consider it unethical to do so. I am pleased that the sequence of events was such that we ended up where I wanted to be anyway. Okay, which is there is an overlap. Let's say again, three areas. We don't want to do too many things simultaneously because we're just simple monkey people. There is the question of identity. There's the question of time, and there's the question of symbols. Okay. And those three interact. And I want to outline that from an Illuminati point of view, but this is Illuminati not from the conspiratorial point of view, but from the ontological point of view. In the ontological point of view, and ultimately you can interrupt me as you want, but try to wait a little bit. As far as identity, I am not really William Branch. That is a label for me of many labels for me. And I'll use many because that's a convenient plural. I am an American, but I'm not really an American. I'm a human, but I'm not really a human. I am male, but I'm not really male. Okay. So does that cover all the areas I want to be? Uh, 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 yeah, human, not human, American, not American, male, not male, William, not William. Now I could expand on all of those, but this is something that goes into semantics or symbology because this plays into the fact that our words or symbols, like the stop sign, our words or symbols are not able to grasp what they're pointing at. There's the moon and there's the finger pointing at the moon. And we're just talking about fingers pointing at the moon, but I'm pointing out that I have more than one finger pointing at that moon, not just one. Okay. And so, in that way, I am very similar to, and Luke Thompson knows this, he and I are very, very close in ways that we can't even express. Exactly in this area because the, you know, I've told you, word study, word study, word study. Word study's the beginning. The actual thing of a word or symbol is its usage, right? And it's so impossible, but we try anyway to try to get the usage of what was the Apostle Paul's usage of such and such a word in First Corinthians.
Yeah.
Okay? There are people and I and I sympathize who think that a single primary dictionary definition is sufficient. And I agree that that's a great place to start. But let's say if we're talking about you and I speaking or writing in words of today, I have to figure out your usage to understand what you are saying.
Encyclopedia over dictionary.
Oh, bigger than an encyclopedia because it's semiotics. Dictionary is only semantics. That's the full set of the 9 million fingers pointing at the object as opposed to one or two. But none of those fingers encompass what the moon is. The moon is a thing. And in that sense, it's actually beyond all symbols, right? But at least when you go symbol wise, like Jonathan Pajot, once you go symbol wise, you're at least escaping the verbal trap of thinking that everything is definable by words, which is Luke Thompson's hobby horse. So so that gets you some sense of it. You want to do time, and that also does the symbol part, but we haven't really dealt with the time. Okay, in
Well, say
time.
say a, say a little more about symbols.
Okay,
if
on
you can.
semiotics, okay, on semiotics, okay, the difficulty with symbols as opposed to words is they don't have a dictionary. For instance, you have a variety of different cross shapes in Christianity. And for instance, you have the Jerusalem cross. Okay. And you can look up books that show you symbols and they give a verbal name or label to that cross. But labeling a cross as the Jerusalem cross, that doesn't get 1% of what a Jerusalem cross means. A Jerusalem cross means the entire crusades from the first crusade through the ninth crusade and everything that happened in those hundreds of years that happened because that was its usage. What was the usage of that symbol? It was on somebody's surcoat and it meant something to them. Of course, it's difficult for us to relate to it because we can't go interview them. But the same thing applies to current day symbols that you could interview people on, right? So, uh, the usage of it. What does the Jerusalem cross mean? What does the difference? What is the difference? Okay, because I love the Middle Ages too. There's all sorts of things I love. Uh, the difference between a Hospitaller surcoat and a Templar surcoat. What is the
Mm.
difference between those two? They're not the same. The the Templars is red cross on a white surcoat. The Hospitallers is white cross on a black surcoat. That's a classical example that Jonathan Pajot could probably tell you a lot about. Okay,
Okay.
but they're actually meaningful. They're not trivial, right? So that's that that's an example of how usage is basically a bottomless well. Even if you're talking about something contemporary, if you're talking about a symbol that's ancient, where you can't cross-examine the users of it, okay, all you can do is you can cross examine the larpers of it, a modern person with a Templar surcoat or Hospitaller surcoat who is larping as a knight, as a holy knight. Um, you know, that's a different thing entirely, and and that's okay as far as it goes. But it can't be the genuine thing. So does that give you some sense of the symbology or semiotics and how that?
Yeah. Okay. Time.
Okay, so just to hit time. Time is important because we don't understand it. Okay, right now you and I are at a particular time together, a shared time. Okay, that didn't exist yesterday and it won't exist tomorrow. So what is time? Do you have the time? Okay, here time gets into identity, gets into embodiment. Okay, an example. When I see a child, I'm not seeing today, I'm seeing the future.
Hmm.
I'm seeing what that child could be 20 and 40 years in the future. Because again, because my perceptual field, my illuminous of my Illuminati, okay, that that was cultivated, that was both spontaneous and cultivated over 7 decades. I see a child as the future. If I see you, I'm seeing the present. You are the present. You are the embodied present. And when I see myself in the mirror, I'm seeing the embodied past. It's exactly like the three angels in A Christmas Carol. Okay. The three angels in the Christmas Carol. I'm the ghost of Christmas past. You are the ghost of Christmas present. And a child, particularly the child that you may have, that is the ghost of Christmas future. And that all applies to my identity because if you saw me before we started recording, and it's okay for you to see me otherwise, I'd be happy to show you myself after we're done recording. You will know why I say Christmas, present, past, and future. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yes. So, what is the past, the present, and the future? They're actually simultaneous. And that's what eternity is. Eternity is everything all at once. Sequence, a clock, is temporal. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. A temporality. That is actually a constraint upon the multiverse. We are constraining the multiverse to follow a certain pattern. That also affects how we perceive cause and effect, because cause and effect is sequential.
Yeah.
Okay. So that gets into some deep philosophy, and I don't necessarily spend a lot of time developing my philosophy. I would rather get it right than get my philosophy verbose. Not picking on anybody we know.
Of course not. Um, you know,
So how does that fill out? That fills out what I mean by Illuminati as an ontology. Okay.
yeah. What I thought was really interesting there was how you said that cause and effect is bound by time, and
Yes. Well, and sequential or chronological time is a binding. You are constraining events to happen sequentially, and we do that. Okay. Again, anthropology. Have you ever heard of Indian time or African American time,
yep,
or it's it's
sure,
it's the time of I'll show up at such and such, but they may be earlier, they may be late, but they're never on time.
yeah,
That's because they don't have the clock. Us highly trained Westerners have a clock that we've inherited for 800 years from the desire of the Roman Catholic Church to synchronize all of their prayers globally. It's just like your clock in a synchronizing your watches in a World War II assault. Okay, they had the idea 800 years ago to have a clock that did a sequence originally by hours, not by minutes or seconds. Do it by hours and do it sequentially and such that they could then synchronize everybody to have the the matins or the vespers all at the same time. The Pope said, I want all of you guys to do this prayer and I want you to all do it at the same time. And that's why we have clocks.
it's wild.
But that's also thinking about clocks, that's exactly where Einstein got the special theory of relativity because he thought long and hard as a young man at the patent office about how this doesn't work. We have naive views of physical reality as Cistercian monks, right? But when you get down to it, because you have to have trains that run on time. How do you make sure that the trains go on time when they're miles and miles apart, and the signal on the telegraph, basically you have a telegraph that is signaling the next station, right? And the signal on a wire runs at half the speed of light. Okay, in a telegraph it moves half the speed of light, and normally the time differential is not going to make any difference. But when you get into certain physical problems like electromagnetic waves, it becomes important. So clocks are very, very important, and tying things down sequentially is very important. And that also simultaneously gets us the cause and effect thing working for us. But but cause and effect only happens. It doesn't happen because it happens because we make it. We constrain our perception to do certain things, and we arrange our lives and our machines to obey those rules. Because, of course, telegraphs and trains don't happen in nature. All the animals, like my cats, all my cats are on cat time. Is it dawn? Time to go outside. Is it dusk? Time to go outside again, right? Because animals like to prowl at those hours. Which, by the way, when we're done here, I have to go and let them in.
Well, okay, then let me ask you the final question.
Excellent.
I, I had a question I was asking, and now I'm done asking that question. So the new question is something like, I'm on a quest for holy Techne,
Mm-hmm.
and for whatever reason, you and I shared time together,
Yes.
and now I will be departing.
Yes.
So my question for you, William Branch, is what should I take with me on my quest? Or where should I go next on my quest? Or what should I be looking out for on my quest?
Okay. I believe in particular you need to pay attention to the ambiguity, the inescapable ambiguity of time and symbol. And as it turns out, the ambiguity of your own identity. Because you think you're Ethan Kahi, but you're not. So to what extent are you not who you think you are? Who else are you? And of course, we do this a lot with like our hobbies. If we have more than one hobby, I am a coin collector. I am a student of language. I am a student of music. Those are all identities that exist within me. I'm not just one thing. Does that make sense?